Hello, math students. Welcome back to Module 1, Ratios and Unit Rates. The title of our lesson, which is Lesson 18, is Percent of a Quantity. Our goal for today we are going to find the percent of a quantity. The question that I want you to think about in this lesson is, what modeling tool can help you find percents of quantities? Things to know. We're going to do a little practice problem about student council. And so I think by doing this, you'll get to see how we can find the percent of a quantity. A quantity is a given amount, okay? So the student council has 10 students from 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. 6 of them are 8th graders. What percent of student council is 8th grade? So our job is to figure out how many total 8th graders there are and turn that into a percent. And so I have a tape diagram right here, and I'm looking at my tape diagram, and it's a little bit too big because it says there's 10 students. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I just have a couple extras, so I'm going to squiggle those off, so I don't want you to think about those or worry about it. We're allowed to do that. And so I have 10 boxes. Now, the reason why I have 10 boxes in my tape diagram is because I have 10 students in the student council. So this whole thing right here represents the entire student council, okay? And so this little tape is going to show us the entire student council. Then if we go back and read some more and look for more quantities, 6 of those 10 kids are 8th graders. So we know from here to here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we know from here to here that these guys are 8th graders. And so what you're trying to do by looking at this tape diagram is you're trying to figure out what percent of them are 8th graders. Well, we know if we have 10 squares, this whole amount right here represents 100%. And the reason we know that is because it's the whole thing. And if you have the whole thing of something, you have 100% of it. So now our job is to figure out how much of a percent are just the 6th graders, or 8th graders, sorry, I'm getting confused with all these words, 8th graders. And so if we look at it, it's saying that we have 6 out of the 10 are 8th grade. So let's write that. We have the total number of students, so total students, right? Total ST, and then we have 8th grade, right? So it says 6 out of 10, all right? And then what we're trying to do is we're trying to find the percent, and we know 10 is 100%. So the question that you have to ask yourself is, how did I get from 10 to 100? And to answer that question, we say, oh, well, that's easy. I multiplied by 10. And what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So 6 times 10 equals 60. So now I know that the number of 8th graders in student council represents 60%. So each one of these boxes then must be 10%. And if you count them like that, then you see very quickly that 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So 60% would be our 8th grade kids. And so to answer this question, what percent of the student council is 8th grade? We can say 60% of the student council is 8th grade. So tape diagrams is one way of showing this. Another way of showing it is using your double number line, which you guys all know about the double number line. We just write it differently. So if we're going to use the double number line, then we can set it up so that it looks like this, remembering that you always start with 0. So that would be 0 and 0. So this would be 0%. This one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 8 lines. I might have to go a little bit longer on here, right? So this would be 9, and this would be 10, maybe, if we're looking at it. All right, so we would know this over here is 100%. And then students, we know that 10 represents the whole student council. And so we want to find out what 6 represents. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We want to know what percent this represents. Okay? So that's not so bad. So we ask ourselves some easy questions. How do I get from 10 to 1? How do I get from 10, this is 10, all the way over here to 1? And if you said divide by 10, you're absolutely right. So I'm going to take 10 divided by 10, and that takes me to 1. What I do to one side, I have to do the other. So 100 divided by 10 is 10. Oh, well, that makes sense. So if 1 is 10, what would 2 be? 20%. If 1 is 10, what would 3 be? 30%, because we're just multiplying. 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 3 is 3, 1 times 4 is 4, 10 times 4 is 40, 1 times 5 is 5, 10 times 5 is 50, 1 times 6 is 6, 10 times 6 is 60, and we now have found what percent of them are 8th graders, 60%, and we did that on the double number line. So it's working. So we know how to do it as a tape diagram. We know how to do it as a double number line. I'm wondering if we could use a ratio table to do the same thing. Okay, well, let's try it out and see. We know that 10 equals 100%, yes? Okay, so if we try 10 equals 100%, then we can even say 10 students makes 100%. So 9 students, 8 students, 7 students, 6 students, 5 students, 4 students, 3 students, 2 students, and 1 student. So the question that you ask yourself is, how did you get from 10 to 1? You divided by 10. 100 divided by 10 is 10%. And so now we can work backwards. So 1 equals 10%, 2 equals 20, 3 equals 30, 4 equals 40, 5 equals 50, 6 equals 60, 7 equals 70, 8 equals 80, and 9 equals 90. So if there are 6 kids in student council that are 8th grade, what would be the percent of them? 60%. Okay? And the last thing I want to throw in at you really quickly is remember that a percent is a part of 100. That means that you have something out of 100. Okay? So I just showed you 3 different models that can help you figure out what a percent of a part is, or of a quantity. So today we are going to find the percent of a quantity, which we did that. What modeling tool can help you find percents of quantities? You have 3 to choose from, okay? And you're going to tell me which one you like and for what reason, okay? All right, kiddos, that's all I have for you today. I'll talk to you soon. Bye!